Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Pass is intercepted at the goal line. Up for the layup! Oh, blocked by James! Curry, way downtown.
And welcome back to the 2020 podcast, where hindsight is 2020, but the takes are always 10 out of 10. And today I am completely solo. If you watched our previous mock draft, I mentioned that I was going to be doing a solo mock. And in the mock draft before that, Drew did his own solo mock draft. He recorded it and sent it to me so I can edit it up and post it online for the channel. So if you haven't checked any one of those out or any of our mock drafts out, there's 3 out right now. Check those out. See how our feelings and what we're hearing has progressed and changed, and what's going on, kind of what we're seeing with our eyes and hearing with our ears. And it's going to be no different today. I'm going to be doing and going through the exact same process. Drew and I do different things and we hear different things, and there's part of that, but then there's also part of it where we want to do what we want to do at the same time. So that's going to be the whole purpose of today. Is I'm going to be able to do completely whatever I want. I have on the screen the PFF mock draft simulator. That's the way we're going to be going today. And with the very first pick of the first round, obviously we're going to be going with none other than Fernando Mendoza. It's not going to be a really big surprise there. We don't have to sit here and harp on it too much. They could do something crazy. Apparently they have been fielding a little bit of phone calls, and those teams know where they stand, was the consensus that was reported. So we're going to leave it at that. Again, as it stands right now, we're doing no trades. So Fernando Mendoza is going to be the pick right here. And I do think the Jets are going to stand pat right here. Shout out to Drew for sending me a article saying that David Bailey's top 30 visit with the Jets was canceled, kind of suggesting that maybe they're leaning closer towards Arvell Reese. We've gone David Bailey, we've gone Arvell Reese. It's kind of been back and forth, a little bit back and forth of, do you want the prototypical edge rusher, or do you want the guy with the pass rush upside who's young and can do all the off-ball linebacker stuff as well? It seems like they're going to be leaning towards Reese, so that's where we're going to be going today. Is Arvell Reese, linebacker, Ohio State. And here, pick 3 is where I think the trade conversations really start to ramp up, and that is the Arizona Cardinals, where Dallas is potentially looking to move up. Kansas City has moved up in the past for blue chip prospects and talent. The Saints are always a big blue chip talent mover uppers in the draft. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe New York wants to move up. The Giants want to move up a little bit just to jump. Tennessee potentially. And typically again, so far we have not done trades. The next mock draft, we will be hitting trades on Sunday, so be looking out for that. But we're not going to overthink it here. Francis Mauigoa, he's a right tackle out of Miami. There's some concerns of whether he's going to play tackle or guard. Can he move to left potentially? Could he play both sides? It is hard to kind of switch around and move around. The best tackles in this draft are more frequent than not right tackles. And there's a lot of questions in this draft or whether a lot of these tackles are guards. Francis Mauigoa is no exception here, but I do think he's an exceptional player. He's a top 10 player on my big board. He's a top 10 player on every other person's big board as well. I'm a little bit of an oddball. I'm not afraid to move guys around and move them out of my top 10 just because they're on other people's boards. But Francis Mauigoa at 3, protect whoever is going to be throwing the football for the Arizona Cardinals. At the number 4 spot, I feel like a lot of the times we go Jeremiah Love here, but we have Robert Saleh out there now. We know what he can do with the defense, and we know with the running backs, they make good teams better, but they don't make bad teams better. We don't really see that historically. We don't see that even in recent history. So here at this number 4 spot, we're going to go David Bailey. We're not going to let him slide or move around. A lot of the NFL is pretty high on the guy. His athletic profile jumps off the charts. I sometimes don't understand and get it on certain parts of it, but I think going different here at the number 4 spot with David Bailey is the right move, because Robert Saleh is going to want a guy that he can rely on. Obviously, he traded for Jermaine Johnson. He's got a couple of his guys now in the building, which is great. let's get another guy in there who's young because they want Robert Saleh to stay with this team for the foreseeable future. Get a young guy in there to really game wreck every single week. And at the number 5 spot, New York is going to be looking in a couple different directions. And just for full clarity, I have not done a lot of. Let me back up. I didn't do a full mock draft in which I went through 1 for 32, and I did about 5 or 6 of them last night. And I went, I don't know which way to go. Because here's the thing. You do one, someone falls, right? Someone has to fall. Love has to fall. Styles has to fall. Bane has to fall. Downs has to fall. Delane has to. Someone has to fall if you're not going to make this kind of chalk, which the draft is never chalk. And then you wonder why some of these guys end up falling. So at this 5 spot, Jeremiah Love I believe, is the pick I'm going to make here. And the reason why that is Carnell Tate is a little bit too early for the 5 spot. According to a lot of teams, they like him, but 5 is a little too early. What's the difference between 5 and 6? I don't know. Spoiler alert, I genuinely don't know because Carnell Tate is linked to the Browns, which is another trade back spot, it seems. Styles is also another very heavy talker right here, where it feels like a John Harbaugh pick where he's had a lot of really good inside linebackers. 5 is a little rich for my blood for Styles as well. But they were shopping for running backs, the top running backs in free agency, even with Cam Scatterbo. I know he's a fan favorite, and the vibes are high for New York right now because of the quarterback running back duo, obviously with your Malik Neighbors out there as well coming back off of injury. But most places go running back committee regardless, and Love is a much better player than Cam Scatterbo is, or is what he's supposed to be at least. And we're going to slot him in right there at that number 5 spot. And with the number 6 spot, this is another situation where trade back that conversation would be heavy when we are going to be recording on Sunday. I think I want to move back at that number 6 spot for sure for the Browns, because I think they're going to be looking for picks. I think they're going to be loading up for the future because they are not ready, right? Some of these other teams that we've already talked about, you have a team that is gearing up for the future, right? With a quarterback. You have a team with no quarterback who has a ton of picks in the top 44. So they are going to be just using a ton of picks to get as much talent as they can. But they have the picks. While Arizona and the Browns also fall into that, where they don't have as many as, the Jets do in terms of the value of their picks. So trading back and getting some additional value, not only for this draft, but maybe the next draft as well, is something I think that we can be looking forward to. So Cleveland here, though, you have Carnell Tate, who is very heavily rumored. You have Sonny Styles, who a lot of the times in a lot of these mock drafts is not here. Ruben Bain is still here. Caleb Downs is still here. Mansell Delane is still here. I think a little early for Delane. I don't think I've ever seen him go particularly this high. But the one thing that they definitely need as well is offensive line talent. They revamped a little bit of their offensive line, but they kind of got like the worst offensive linemen for some of the worst offensive line teams. So this may be seen as a reach, and I am going to reach on him a little bit, but Spencer Fano out of Utah is a player that can potentially play all 5 positions. He can play tackle, he can play guard, and he was even trying out in the combine with the center workouts as well. So I'm going to go ahead and slot him in right here because we want to build through the trenches. So regardless of what these other guys are playing, guard, tackle, whatever that they brought in through free agency and they revamped and moved guys around, Spencer Fano can slot in basically anywhere. I think he's the perfect offensive lineman to slot in that place. Again, some people may see that as a reach, but there are people really high on him. Arizona is seen as a team that they're really high on Spencer Fano. So trading back inside, still the top 10, and taking him, I think, is a real possibility and a real chance. At the number 6 spot, again, Spencer Fano out of Utah, tackle, guard, center, whatever you want to call him, offensive lineman, is going to be slotting it right there to the Browns. So at the number 7 spot, Washington would have really loved Jeremiah Love to fall to them. I think that would have been their number 1 choice. But I think they're really ecstatic, and I think they're really happy that you need to find a weapon for Jaden Daniels to throw to outside of 30-year-old Terry McLaurin and then whoever else is right behind him, Luke McCaffrey and that one kid that Tennessee drafted a couple years ago that they just got. Wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s is basically who's behind Terry McLaurin. And then obviously their running back committee right now. Rashad White was brought over, and that's a great out of the backfield catcher. But let's get him someone big to throw to in Carnell Tate, Ohio State. His contested catch rate is fantastic. I think that Jaden Daniels is a great quarterback. I don't think last year and his injury problems are going to be persistent with what we're going to see with him for the rest of his career and even next year. I hope he stays healthy. As much as I don't want Washington to be successful, I don't want young players to be injured, because we watch these players through college and we watch them. We watch them in the draft, and we want to make sure that these guys that we evaluate can be successful and get the best chances possible to be successful. So Carnell Tate right there, give him some additional help. Again, big contested catch guy, big bodied wide receiver, increased his contested catches and his success rate of contested catches, while also increasing how often he's targeted in those contested catches, while also reducing the amount of drops that he has as well. So overall, great wide receiver. I won't spoil it, but he's a top 5 prospect for me in this draft. I really like him. At the number 8 spot, New Orleans needs defense. I think the offense looks pretty good right now. I know if Tate was here at the 8th spot, I'd be picking him, because that is availability that you just cannot pass up, because the wide receivers behind Chris Olave is not the best. But you could potentially go out and get a player in the free agent pool still to go kind of fill those positions and spots, and we're going to see a little bit of free agency plucking right after the draft, and I would like to see them fill those holes either later in the draft. But right now, they need defense, and Demario Davis departed from the team. I would like to see Sonny Styles take this spot right here. The other person that has a very good chance of being taken at this spot right here is Caleb Downs, because they are in love with him, particularly. The other person they're in love with is Jeremiah Love, but with them signing Travis Etienne, they have Alvin Kamara. I think it's very obvious they don't think he's going to get to him. That's why he's gone at this point. And Sonny Styles sliding in right here, commanding that defense, is going to be a great choice for them. And at the number 9 spot, Kansas City Chiefs. They have not showed their hand exactly what they're going to be doing. Their top 30 visits are exactly what we thought they would be. They're their wide receivers, their edge rushers, their defensive backs, corners specifically. They're very good at getting corners anywhere in the draft. So you could say Mansour Delane right here, perfect. They lost like their top 2 corners. This is perfect to slot him in right here. Also, you could say Reuben Bain Jr., which is kind of closer to where I'm leaning. Yeah, absolutely. Bain or Downs, either one of those. The reason I'm going to go a little crazy right now, I'm going to go different, is after Patrick Mahomes is injured, I don't think Andy Reid is going to want to take a risk and not making sure that that offensive line talent is as high as it possibly can be. And right now, the right tackle is the backup for Trent Williams, or was the backup for Trent Williams. It's like, oh yeah, no, we're cool with that. We're fine with that. So moving the tackle position around a little bit, I think if Spencer Fano was available here, we would be taking him. I think a player that's not talked about enough that might be taken a little bit higher is Monroe Freeling. He is a left tackle, but I think he could be moved to right. I think that your other left tackle could also be moved to right as well. So moving those guys around for the betterment of Patrick Mahomes, I think is super important. And all the reason why I think a tackle could be taking this spot as well is because the tackles in the draft are top heavy. If we want to click right here to the tackle spots, we have Monroe Freeling, we have Blake Miller, who's a right tackle, Caden Proctor, who's a left right tackle, maybe a guard, in my opinion, but that's besides the point of my opinion. Iheanacho, Lomu, and then we have a drop. We have a significant drop after that. And it's just kind of like the rest of the guys. Like these guys right here, Lomu and up, like these are first round talent guys who will probably be taken in the first round. Lots of offensive linemen in this year's draft. There's a lot of guard talent you can get kind of in the second and third, but the tackle talent kind of drops off. So if you're going to wait after that, I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to even wait until pick 29 when you could get a corner, you could get a wide receiver at the pick 29 instead. So let's go ahead and slot in Monroe Freeling out of Georgia right there to protect Patrick Mahomes. So we have 3 offensive linemen inside of this top 10 already. And to round out the top 10, defense, very similar to the Cincinnati Bengals, and eventually coming up soon is the Cowboys. Defense is what you definitely want to take here. We could go edge rusher. I know they signed Boye Mafe and free agency, and you want to kind of get someone else opposite of that. Definitely could be, but you have potentially the best player in the draft still sitting here. And I know it says they need linebacker, but they started 2 young linebackers last year, and it was kind of a disaster. And I don't think it's very good for your formula to do it again, start another young linebacker and trying to maybe reach on one like CJ Allen, who's going to be a little bit further down the list, right down here. But we are going to play a guy who played almost half his snaps in the box and half his snaps high. And also he played like 44 snaps on the edge. He played a couple snaps outside, played snaps in the slot, played everywhere. So Caleb Downs, new captain of the defense, is basically what he's going to eventually be, safety out of Ohio State. At the 11th spot, I think this is a conversation for interior offensive linemen. I think this is a conversation for wide receivers because you need someone from Malik Willis to throw to. But Miami has quite a few picks. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait on all that because wide receiver I don't think is as important as maybe people think it is. It wouldn't be that surprising if Miami went 2 offensive linemen in the first round alone, just because, again, this is offensive lineman top heavy draft, and then it's the rest of the guys after. While wide receiver, you can spread them out a little bit, right? We've had there's no wide receiver run yet. 1 wide receiver is gone at this point. We don't need to panic. We don't need to go start running around and throwing up and having a hard time trying to figure out what's going on and panicking. We're going to take it easy. We're going to relax. I think if Spencer Fano again was here, I think that'd be a great pick for them. They'd be excited for that because he can play everywhere. Vega Ioane, the guard out of Penn State, is one of the choices I would like to lean towards right now. Mansour Delane is another way I would like to lean towards, but there's a lot of corners in the draft. It's another one where you can lean towards other ways. Guard is another one where you can kind of wait a little bit more. So you're kind of just at the will of what you want to do. Best player available, Delane, Ioane. I think the guard position is going to be a little bit harder to fill, though, than the corner position later in the draft. So I am going to go Vega Ioane out of Penn State. A really good guard. I don't think people understand how good of a guard he really is. He's a top 20 prospect for me. And this comes down to what this team actually needs. And interior offensive lineman is going to be the priority. All offensive linemen, all trench players are going to be the priority for this team. That's completely rebuilding, basically. At the number 12 spot, Dallas Cowboys, my favorite team coming up. And this kind of just falls perfect for them. And obviously you can say, oh, you made it fall perfect for them. You made it do this thing, right? Ruben Bain Jr., Mansour Delane. There's a lot of questions here. We had Delane fall pretty far last time, all the way down to the 16th spot in our last mock draft. And it just happened to be, and we had no trades, right? I think if Delane is available at 11, it would not be surprising to see another team like the Jets potentially try to move up and grab him. I think another team that is primed to move up for a corner, especially if they're sitting around like that, I think is any of these 20 spot teams is very comfortable with moving up past Dallas to try to take them, because I do think Dallas in this situation would take them. And yes, we are following the route of maybe this Ruben Bain Jr. stuff with the 2024 car accident that he was involved in. Maybe it does make him plummet his draft stock just a little bit. I know that teams were saying we were aware about it. Unfortunately, the reality is teams are more upset if you would have lied about it than actually what happened. That is the reality of the world we live in. But Mansour Delane, corner out of LSU, probably the best man corner in this draft. Exactly what Dallas needs, especially with the injury concerns of both their potential starting corners, Siobhan Ravel, Deron Bland. Injury concerns, Deron Bland, especially 2-foot injuries, 2-foot surgeries, back-to-back years. Ravel's coming off of his ACL, now further out removed. He should be better, but it's a just in case. And we have some good talent behind that. Kalen Carson's pretty talented. Josh Butler, guys like that are good. But again, we want to make sure that we're still stacking up. And Mansour Delane, talent like that at 12, you can't really pass. And at 13, the Rams are sitting here, and they have interesting. They have an interesting world that they live in, where Ruben Bain Jr. has fallen all the way, but they don't really need a defensive lineman to stack up. A trade back spot would be very realistic here. Wide receiver seems to be what a lot of people think they're going for. Tackle is another way that they could be going as well. It wouldn't be super surprising. They don't obviously care about their picks that much. So a tackle here would be Blake Miller, Caden Proctor, who's going to go a lot earlier than people think, but Caden Proctor is potentially going to be there. Linebacker spot as well. I am going to go chalk, though. I am going to go Makai Lemon. The other place I could be leaning is Kenyon Sadiq. They did try to trade up for Brock Bowers a couple of years ago, but I do think Kenyon Sadiq is not as good as a prospect as Brock Bowers is. But he is still a very phenomenal prospect. He's a top 10 prospect for me. I think he sits right there at that 10th spot. But Makai Lemon is where we're going to go. And at the 14th spot, this is going to be quick and easy for me. You could go wide receiver, no centers or guards here that you're going to take, no linebackers either. We're going to go easy. We're going to go simple. And we're going to go Kenyon Sadiq. You don't have that many tight ends on the roster currently, and you need to draft one. And they are bringing in tight ends for their top 30 visits. I believe they brought in Eli Stowers, but bringing in Kenyon Sadiq and drafting him, you know the type of prospect he is just from the film alone, having visits with him at the combine, seeing what he's done. I think this is a pretty comfortable take. Now, if they don't want to, and they want to pair someone else along the side of, they want to pair him alongside with their new pass rusher, not Max Crosby, but Trey Hendrickson. Ruben Bain Jr. is a very real possibility here that could be taken. They go, how do I not take him here at this point? We're not going to let him fall any further than this, though, because I think that defense is where they want to go. If tight end is gone and Kenyon Sadiq, I think Ruben Bain Jr. would absolutely be the draft pick here. And I think that Tampa Bay is ecstatic that a player of this caliber, one of my best players on the draft board, has fallen this far. Again, we're going the road of maybe this does affect his draft stock more than people are letting on. So let's go that route tonight. And Ruben Bain Jr., again, being the pick here for Tampa Bay. You know, when your coach is on the hot seat and you need a guy who's a game wrecker and is going to make game-changing plays instantly, Ruben Bain Jr. has to be the pick. He is definitely the pick. The Jets, we went with Arvell Reese the first time around, and I think the Jets are just primed to take best player available. Reports say that they are absolutely in love with a wide receiver, not Jordan Tyson, though. Omar Cooper Jr., they are absolutely in love with. But I think you can wait a little bit longer on wide receiver because I think we're going to go with Jamad McCoy here. They traded away their corner and Sauce Gardner away. I think Jamad McCoy, if healthy, can be exceptional. And we're going back-to-back defense. I don't think that they're going to be putting a huge emphasis on that offense right now. Again, we're taking best player available for the Jets every single time. So trading away Sauce and bringing in another corner with that same pick that Indy's supposed to be having, and Jamad McCoy, I think perfectly slots in. At the 17th spot, you got a couple of needs for the Detroit Lions. Getting some defensive line help is going to be pretty substantial. Akeem Mesidor could be a pick here. Keldrick Falk, I think, is closer to what the Lions want, though. Someone who can play over the tackle and out of the tackle as well, which Falk did do more than Mesidor, where he played mainly outside the tackle most of last year's snaps, at least. When it comes to the Lions, though, they need a tackle, especially when you have a quarterback that is so immobile like Jared Goff. And the whispers are that I guess you got to scroll down a little bit to get him, Caden Proctor is not going to get past the Lions at 17. I do think it's between those two guys. I think it's between Proctor and Falk. I think it's between those two. If Proctor is somehow gone, which, again, I've made my feelings very clear about Proctor. When we get to our positional rankings, I think it'll become even clearer how I feel about Proctor. But point is, I think if Proctor's not there, it is going to be Keldrick Falk, who is one of the most like wide-ranging players on how people kind of feel about him right now. I like him a lot. I think he's exceptionally talented. I think he's going to be good in this league. I don't think he's a tweener, which I think a lot of people maybe think he is, and tweeners don't get a lot of success in the NFL. So I get the concern, but here with Minnesota, safety is going to be a huge need. I think it's a little bit too early for the rest of their needs that they want for this team. Slotting in a guy again, we've gone chalk now twice. Mekhi Lemon was our other chalk pick. Well, obviously, Fernando Mendoza, yes, Arvil Reese potentially, Francis Mauigoa, but we're gonna go chalk here, and we're gonna go Dylan Thieneman. I think the conversation for Thieneman is 12 with the Cowboys. If McCoy is gone, if we live in a world where maybe the tackles don't go that early, and maybe we're living in a world where Mansour Delane goes a little bit earlier than we think he goes. Maybe he goes to Washington. Maybe he goes to New Orleans. They lost Alontae Taylor. And then Kansas City picks up Jamad McCoy. And then all of a sudden, Dallas is sitting there with no cornerback prospects. No, they don't need a tackle. That's besides the right tackle. That's besides the point. I'm not going to get into that. And not at 12 at least. Then I think the real conversation starts there at 12. But Dylan Thieneman is exceptional. I wrote in my notes that he is very little improvement to make to be a starter basically almost anywhere in this league. I think he's exceptional. He's freaky athletic. And I think that he has all the right instincts to never put himself in a situation where he is going to be outplayed or outmaneuvered by the players he's trying to cover. So he's an intelligent player, and I like that about him. Slotting him into the Minnesota Vikings, which, the white guy, Harrison Smith, is leaving. So let's bring in another white guy, and Dylan Thieneman is basically the slot in. So here at the 19th spot, you have the Carolina Panthers. We could get more additional weapons for Carolina and Bryce Young, which we've done it before in the past. We've had Kenyon Sadiq fall. We take him. We have Jordan Tyson still sitting here, which I know he usually goes around this ballpark range. And Omar Cooper Jr. is in that ballpark range. Someone that is not like Ted McMillan, right? And Omar Cooper Jr., Jordan Tyson, those guys are different, right? Who else do we got here? Denzel Boston is going to be closer to Ted, not as talented. I'm not saying he's the same. Casey Concepcion is the yak guys. That's what we want, right? But also, we want defense, and we want to make sure that we're loading up as much as possible. They brought in Jalen Phillips. They signed the linebacker out of Jacksonville. His name is escaping me right now, doing the same thing that Drew's doing. But the number one thing is just trying to get as much defensive help as possible. So potentially grabbing a wide receiver a little bit later on in the draft can be beneficial for Carolina. I don't think that's really an awful thing that we can bring in, especially with the emergence of Jalen Coker is really good. And I don't have an issue with that, of him being a solid 2 or a 3. Bring in another young wide receiver. I think a Tyson is sitting here. If it's me, I'm taking Tyson. I like Tyson a lot. But we are going to slot in Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who, imagine on this defense, Devin Lloyd, got it. You re-up a lot of the defensive troubles that you're having. You have Derek Brown, Jalen Phillips, Devin Lloyd, and now you bring in a guy, and obviously J.C. Horn on the outside. Now you bring in a guy who's just a ball hawk. He wants to knock the ball out every opportunity that he can get. And you have him on the back end now, too. So having the additional playmaker on the back end is what Carolina is missing on that defense. Bring in Emmanuel McNeil Warren is absolutely a game-changing play. And we have the Cowboys here at 20. The linebacker play last year was not the best. We have DeMarvion Overshown is going to be basically the guy, but how healthy can he stay is a question at this point. Bringing in CJ Allen out of Georgia is going to be a need. The Cowboys need to draft linebacker with one of their first couple of picks that they have in the draft. Need to, because we don't have that many linebackers on staff right now. I think it's 3. And we have 3 linebackers on the roster right now. So CJ Allen out of Georgia, I think, is a great pick. I think if you're going to wait and maybe you get back into the second round somehow, some way, through some type of trade potentially, I think that maybe getting Jacob Rodriguez in the second isn't the worst opportunity as well. I think he's uber talented, very athletic. I think he can play with, a green dot guy is who you want to pick. And CJ Allen is just a football player, and that's what the Cowboys draft is, just football players. Now, I've been disappointed in the past with some of their picks, but some of the guys they just draft, they're just football guys, right? CJ Allen here at the 20 spot is where we're going to go. Excuse me. At 21, the chalk pick that we go every single time is always the tackle spot. Is usually a Blake Miller, usually a lot of the times Proctor is still sitting here. Lomu is still sitting here as well. And I think there's a lot of questions on what we do or what they do with Lomu in the future. Tackle guard, again, remember we had that conversation where a lot of the tackles potentially might be guards in this league eventually, but I think that we're going to have longevity, at least with the tackle position. Don't let it go to waste. Pittsburgh, you pick your other stuff you want to pick. You already have your wide receiver spots filled. Maybe if you want more, back half of the draft, totally fine to take them there. Again, there's going to be some depth there. We could go Blake Miller, but I think reaching a little bit, going for Lomu. I don't. Again, PFF hates him, and I'm with Drew on this one. I like Lomu a lot. So the fact that PFF hates him as much is a little weird and strange to me. I don't understand how low we have him on the ADP. I know they don't update their big boards that often. They do it like once every handful of weeks. So he may be further up in the big board than we realize. And all of a sudden, we're going to see his ADP skyrocket in these mock drafts because PFF says so. At the 22 spot for the Chargers, we are potentially looking at Jordan Tyson right here. Really exciting for Jordan Tyson. You might be saying, wow, Jordan Tyson, he's fallen. I've seen him as high as 13. I agree with you. But there's a lot of whispers right now because of the injury concerns. He is falling a little bit in the drafts now. Is that just smoke screen? Are we smoke screening right now and just kind of doing what the big people want us to do and making guys like this fall? So Jordan Tyson, he would be gone in my mock draft if it was a what would I do mock draft. We also want to make sure that we are grabbing defensive linemen for this team. A guard would be awesome as well. I think it's a little bit early for Pregnon. If you want to move on these tackles to guards, I don't think it's super efficient. It's not an easy switch, especially if they are naturally a tackle. Like, I think Blake Miller's probably a tackle in this league. He's probably just a right tackle, but they don't need tackles. It's one of the last things that they actually do need. Interior defensive lineman is somewhere that they definitely want to go. But I talked about it earlier, how playing over the tackle, inside, outside, a little bit everywhere. Keldrick Falk, I think, is a good fit for this team. Like I said, I've seen him as high as 17, a little even further past that. And then I've seen him fall out of the first round completely. So no one really knows where the guy's going to go. Wouldn't be surprising if he does fall to the second round. I think that's great value for our guy that I do have, I believe, in my top 20. I'd have to check my big board. He's exceptional. I think he's uber talented. I think he's great in the run. I think he can be a little slow. I think a lot of what Auburn was having him do with his pass rush techniques in terms of where he was having his hand on the dirt, both hands in, one hand up, standing, like it was a little bit of variety, but he would have a various amounts of how quick he would get off the snap. So I think with some good coaching, Harbaugh coaching, especially on the defense side of the ball, I don't think there's going to be a lot of worries or concerns there. And at 23, I think Philadelphia is jumping up and down. They're super ecstatic because they're not making a pick for potentially right now unless he's gone. Then it makes 100% sense. They're making a pick for the future. And what they're doing with that pick with the future is they're drafting Jordan Tyson. I would hate it if he got him because I think he is exceptional. I think he could be one of the route running technicians in this league eventually. And the fact that the Eagles can just swoop him up along with Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown's not here in this situation, I think it would be incredibly disheartening. I think it would suck as a Cowboys fan, but as a Philly fan, they would be excited and ecstatic as Philly always just gets some random, really, really, really good player in the draft, and a la Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell at the same time. So you're a little bit confused on why they can get both guys at the same time when both guys are really high on most people's board. Jordan Tyson is not a situation here. And with Cleveland, going back to it, we are Spencer Fonau here at the number 6 spot. Again, guard, tackle, who knows what he really is, but he can play a little bit of everything. I think how the board has fallen is favorable I think we could go with Omar Cooper Jr., who's a yak guy. I think really just going best player available is going to be the move. I would love to go Omar Cooper Jr. here because I think that he is a little bit of a better fit than I think Terrell. I think he's fallen a little bit. Messidor, I think, could go in this range. I think it's a good range for Messidor to actually kind of get swooped up in. Cassius Howell, don't sleep on him. Maybe getting picked up by someone who wants a pass rush specialist. But we are going to go with Omar Cooper Jr., Yak guy. I'm pretty high on Omar, but I think this is ballpark range for him. I think this is a good pick. I think if the Jets go with him at 16, it's a little rich for my blood, especially if he's going in front of Tyson. But the little bit of run on wide receivers now, 2 in a row. We're not going to make it 3 in a row here because they believe in Luther Burden. They believe in Rome Odunze. DJ Moore is gone. So what we're going to focus on is getting ourselves defensive line help, right? No safety help at this point. AJ Halsey, I believe, would be the next step safety. A little early for him. I like him a lot. I like him a little bit more than PFF and a lot of other people do. I think he's an intelligent player for sure. But I think, again, defensive line help is what we want to get. Caden McDonald is a question here, what we want to go with him. But getting a solid pass rusher, the opposite side of Montez Sweat, is where we are going to lean. And getting Akeem Messidor at 25, I think, is starting to get into the steal category for a lot of people. I think this is where ballpark where I would like to see Messidor go, between that 25 to 32-ish range is where I'd like to see him kind of flourish and thrive. But, the board falls in all different ways. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter on that stuff. And at the 26th spot, we have the Buffalo Bills, guard, interior defensive lineman. They need a lot of help there at those spots. Linebacker help as well. If CJ Allen was here, this is the conversation of like, do we trade back? Because I think the Bills would. Jacob Rodriguez maybe trading out of the first round, getting a bunch of picks, and then getting a guy like Jacob Rodriguez, Anthony Hill Jr. There's so many guys between those two. I like Anthony Hill a lot. I know a lot of people do. I don't think this is right. I know Kyle Lewis is very exciting as a prospect, but I don't agree with any of these guys being in front of Anthony Hill. That's besides the point, though. No safety spot is, again, too early for AJ as well. But I do not think it is too early to go with a Caden McDonald, who I don't believe he's the best interior defensive lineman in this draft, but I do think that the interior defensive lineman class is very deep and is very good. So making a little grab right here at 26, who's going to help with stopping the run, is going to be significant. If he could just show some pass rush upside, you're getting an exceptional player for the next 8 years. At the 27 pick, we've slotted him in a couple of times. We're not going guard, we're not going tackle. The 49ers are not concerned with going with an offensive lineman here in this first round. It's already been reported multiple times. Drew's a 49ers fan. He's even said it. We console each other on what to do here. We could go KC here. We could. We do. We have. That's a name that a lot of people like in the building. But a pass rush specialist is something else the 49ers might need. And I see one stare me right in the face. I see TJ Parker and Cassius Howell. Cassius Howell's going a little bit earlier and earlier. The other guy that's getting slotted in early and earlier, if we can scroll down, Zion Young is starting to become a little bit of a hot name. Let's go with Cassius Howell. Sometimes he falls out of the first round for us. Well, let's get a pass rush specialist guy who maybe not might be the best in run situations, but that pass rush is going to be nasty. Osa Odighizuwa, Nick Bosa, Cassius Howell. You got a bunch of guys flying off that is NASCAR immediately, off jump. Quick guys who are going to be collapsing the pocket. Drew loves when we talk about pressures, but pressures for Osa Odighizuwa for the interior offensive line is huge, is important. So collapsing that pocket and allowing a little bit more movement for Cassius and Nick to get there is going to be very significant. We can wait on the wide receivers a little bit later. I know Casey, we want him to go here, but we're going to wait on it. We're not going running back here with the Texans. Center guards, interior defensive linemen, nothing like that. I think we would like to see let me back up a little bit. I think we would like to see another interior defensive lineman taken here. I would like to see Peter Woods in the first round because I think he's a really good player. I think it's more likely that Caleb Banks potentially goes in the first round. But the other guy that I do think that might get moved around a little bit is Emmanuel Pregnon, who is, I believe, a better a pass protector than run protector. The running game for the Texans is going to be very cold, in my opinion. So making sure we're protecting CJ Stroud as much as possible with Emmanuel Pregnon is going to be very much the number one need. So Pregnon, we've snuck him into the first round a couple of times. We're doing it again here today. We protected our quarterback the first time around with Kansas City. And now how the board has fallen, we got Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion still sitting here. I think when it comes to what we want to do with the team, we have the guys who can get yak, who we can gadget around and do a bunch of stuff with. And Casey does fit some of that. I don't want him to become a gadget player, but getting a big body wide receiver out there and Denzel Boston is going to be huge. We hope TJ Parker here would be awesome as well. Same thing with Avion Terrell, excuse me. Other corners that could sneak into this first round, Colton Hood, D'Angelo Pons is getting a lot of whispers. Chris Johnson is getting a lot of whispers as well. Don't be surprised if any one of those guys sneak up into the first round at this point. But I think we're going to go wide receiver because we don't want to let our opportunity go between our fingers. Again, a lot of good corners in this draft. Let's get the big body wide receiver who could be a Cortland Sutton type guy in the future. I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now or almost over a month now, that he's a Cortland Sutton type guy. And if you can get that for Kansas City, you're protecting Patrick Mahomes and now getting him an additional weapon. We can fill up the other spots in the draft later on. KC does a very good job filling up those additional spots later. Now we have Miami at the 30 spot, and we went guard the first time around, right? Vega Ioane. And right now, we are going to continue to fill our spots, I believe, on the offensive line. Let me take a pause right here. We are going to continue to build up this offensive line as much as possible. And with a player with the caliber like Blake Miller still sitting here, Max Ahenachor still sitting here, I think that you have to go with one of these guys with how bad this offensive line really is. Some people are expecting wide receiver and then tackle. Let's just go with tackle and guard just to start out this draft with the Miami Dolphins, because again, they are pretty piss poor when it comes to that side of the ball. Now, when we're looking at the Patriots, we've gone tackle so many times with them. Interior defensive lineman is another place we can go. Linebacker, I think it's too early for Jacob Rodriguez. But Max Ahenachor is a place that we've gone a couple of times here. There's not another tackle I really want to take at this point. But we want to make sure that we are protecting, obviously, Drake May. And we don't want to have an opportunity slip between our fingers, because I think that Max is going to go very early. So continuing to slot him in here is definitely where I want to go. And with the defending, reigning Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks, the last pick, Drew's gone running back in this position when he did his solo mock. We've gone edge, we've gone corner, we've gone wild cards, we've gone a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to drop Avion Terrell out of the first round. It's unfortunate because I love Avion Terrell. He's one of my favorite players in this draft, bar none. And I think that when we're looking at the board, I don't think that anything on the offensive side of the ball is something that we need. Defense is edge rusher, losing Boye Mafe and losing one of their corners as well, or a handful of their corners and safeties as well. So reloading up on the defensive side, the defensive backs especially. Again, a lot of good defensive backs in this draft. So if we pull up real quick, let's make this decision. All right, making it on the fly. Corners and edges. TJ Parker, Zion Young. One of those guys could be the pick here very comfortably and easily. D'Angelo Pons, Chris Johnson, sneaking one of those guys into the first round. Colton Hood, same thing, sneaking him into the first round as well. But when you go down potentially further, getting a Derek Moore at that spot and at the end of the next round, but just we're having further conversations down here where I think we're comfortable with taking some of these guys down here at the edge spot. I wouldn't want to lose my opportunity. You could go with Malachi Lawrence. He may go up draft boards very significantly. Gabe Yakis, I think, is probably going to drop a little bit, but I think that he could be a potential good pick in the second round. So you have options out there at edge. While I do think Pons and Johnson and Hood, here's how we're going to make the decision. Who's the lengthiest guy here? And that's how we're going to make this. I know it's not Pons for a fact. I think it's Johnson's, isn't it? Oh, they're about all the same. I believe he actually might be the. Oh wow. When it comes to length and how they play, I believe it's Johnson who plays with the most hood. Athletic guys are. Here's what we're gonna do. Athletic guys are the ones that the Seattle Seahawks end up going with the most of the time, especially at the cornerback spot. They like those guys, and RAS scores, relative athletic scores, tell you that they are very important for corners. Maybe not for other positions, but they are important for corners. And Hood had some of the best in the draft, so that's where we're gonna go. Just to do a little recap, though, go ahead and download this one for later. Fernando Mendoza going to the Raiders. Arvell Reese going with the Jets. Francis Mauigoa going to the Cardinals. David Bailey going to the Tennessee Titans. Jeremiah Love going to the New York Giants. Spencer Fano going to the Browns. Cardinal Tate going to Washington. Sonny Styles going to New Orleans. Monroe Freeling going to Kansas City. Caleb Downs going to Cincinnati. Miami picking up Vega Ioane. Mansour Delane going to Dallas. LA, the Rams, at least, picking up Mekhi Lemon. Kenyon Sadiq going to Baltimore. Tampa Bay picking up Ruben Bain Jr., a bit of a fall from grace for him, with obviously arm length and 2024 crash coming up. Jerron McCoy going to the New York Jets. Caden Proctor going to Detroit. Minnesota picking up Dylan Thieneman. Carolina getting Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. CJ Allen going to Dallas. Caleb Lomu going to Pittsburgh. Keldrick Fault going to the Chargers. Jordan Tyson going to Philadelphia. Cleveland picking up Omar Cooper Jr. Akeem Mesidor going to the Chicago Bears. Buffalo picking up the only interior defensive lineman that we picked in the draft, and that's Caden McDonald. Cassius Howell going to the 49ers. Emmanuel Pregnon going to the Texans. Denzel Boston going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Blake Miller going to the Miami Dolphins for their second pick. Max Ahenachor going to the New England Patriots. And Seattle Seahawks rounding it out, as we talked about and discussed through, Colton Hood, cornerback out of Tennessee. That's where we're going to end off at. We had a lot of guys still on the board afterwards. I wish it would let us look at who was still there, but TJ Parker still out there at the top of the second. I mean, a lot of people are really excited about that type of talent still sitting there. And it happens every year, right? You could look at this draft and you can go, how did you let Ruben Bain Jr. fall? I don't know. How did Quinyon Mitchell fall? He was number one corner in the draft. He was one of the best players in the draft, bar none. I can pull up receipts and big boards and all that stuff that I had. One of the best players in the draft. How did we let him fall? How does Monroe Freeling go in the top 10? This is a stacked tackle class at the top, and then we got a little bit of a gap. Why not take him early, and then you have it work out in Denzel Boston a little bit later on? You also have Casey Concepcion still sitting out there in the second round. So a lot of exciting players still out there. It's a very exciting draft season. I appreciate you guys sitting through with me, just kind of rambling on. I do that a lot of the times anyways. So it's kind of where we went again, kind of just flying by the seat of our pants as much as possible. Did a couple mock drafts last night. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and we're going to call it good. So I appreciate you guys sticking around. Make sure to check out Sunday. We are going to be doing a 1-round mock draft with trades. If I get enough done, and we may do a little bit of a 2-round mock draft. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. But at least next Tuesday as well, we'll be doing a 2-round mock draft with trades. It'll be our final mock draft, more of a collaborative mock draft with Drew and I. And we appreciate you guys sticking around. Appreciate you guys checking us out. Hit subscribe, you guys. It really helps us out. 140 subscribers. We've been kind of sitting stagnant there for a little bit. We do this draft process every year. We're going to be having draft grades come out. We're going to have full offseason grades come out. And then we're going to have conversations of what free agents are still available, who's winning. Then we have our whole prediction segment, rumors. We have everything kind of going on all at the same time. So we have a lot of fun stuff planned for the channel. We do every year. And then throughout the entire NFL season, we're going to be having conversations of weekly awards and weekly news and getting our takes on things. So we're just a small channel trying to make it big. So if you guys can support us, we do appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. Besides that, peace.